Hi, afternoon, everybody. I think we will just wait another minute or so before we start the session. But I just want to find out if Prof. Feza is in the session yet. It looks like not, but I just wanted to double check. Okay, we'll just wait another minute or so and then we'll start. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. So this stream of breakaway sessions is on developing human resources for ECE, ECCE and Grade R. My name is Jessica Blom, and I work for a nonprofit organization called the Center for Early Childhood Development. And our presentation today is by Prof. Feza, who is talking on pre-Grade R numerosity levels and gaps, a case of South African learners in the Eastern Cape. I'm just waiting to see if Prof. Feza has joined us yet. Looks like not. I do have a video recording if it is needed. Okay, I think what we will do is I'll go ahead and start the video presentation, and hopefully she's able to join us and can join us live. Sorry, give me a second. Please do let me know if you're not able to hear the presentation once it starts.
Greetings, colleagues. My name is Nosisi Feza. I come from the University of Venda. I am presenting to you today pre-grade R numerosity levels and gaps, a case of South African learners in the Eastern Cape. The rationale behind my presentation is supported by the fact that number sense dominates mathematical concepts across mathematical ideas. Literature asserts that diverse experiences of young children prior schooling provides different numerical abilities. And these diverse numerical abilities play a significant role in children's development of numerical fluency. Colleagues like Onyo and Rasen suggest a number of skills for early numeracy that young children should attain. Those skills are symbolic number sense, non-symbolic number sense, mathematical relations that are understood, counting skills, and basic skills in arithmetic. For this paper, reports on pre-grade R learners' numerical abilities, with the aim to identify the preschool and home stimulation influence on their numerosity, as well as identifying gaps. The question this paper asks is, how does the preschool and home stimulation received by grade R learners from low socioeconomic homes present itself for their numeracy development? Clinical interviews are conducted to grade R learners in the Eastern Cape prior to their beginning of learning. These interviews were conducted in a 3-year NRF-funded study. However, in this paper, it is very important to note that only 3 learners are reported, and the selection of these 3 learners was done by looking through about 32 learners' responses. And then each learner was selected from the majority of responses. And therefore, there is a pattern in how we selected the 3 learners. And also 3 items from the whole clinical interview are selected for this particular paper with the purpose of identifying numerical skills and knowledge learners possess. A qualitative analytical approach is used to analyze the learner's responses using the learning trajectory theory of Clements and Sabram. Hence, therefore, the themes will be more from the theory itself. The 3 selected items bring diverse ways to explore learners' numeracy skills. Item 1 is a free play with counters, where learners are observed as they are playing freely. And item 2 is about quantity recognition item. And item 3 is about matching items for symbolic matching item with symbolic numbers and objects. The findings of this paper gave us themes. The first theme is diverse levels of one-to-one correspondence. It is very clear that learners are at different levels when it comes to their one-to-one correspondence attainment. For example, all learners were able to do object counting, meaning when they call a number, they call it pointing to an object. However, if we look at these 3 learners that we've selected from the group, learner 1 lacks object counting skills after counting to 5. So this learner was able to count 1 to 5, pointing each object accurately. However, after 5, he started double counting. So instead of ending with 7, he ended with 9. Learner 2 counts accurately, but is challenged by the cardinality, which means the how many response, the how many answer. For example, when asked to count the 2 groups together, the 2 groups that are on my screen on the left, she counted the first 5, moving on to the second group to 10. However, when she had to announce the cardinal number of the counters, she said there are 12. During free play, learner 3, as he was picking up unifix cubes, he was counting them accurately to 10, and then decided to connect them and make something like a train, which I don't know what he was making. The interesting thing now, when he has to count the 2 groups that are on my left, he counted to 5, but couldn't count on the other group from counting from 5, but started from 1 again, counting the other group. And when it comes that he had to give the cardinal number of the whole group, he gave 5. That was exclusive of the other 5. The other theme is spatially and quantity indistinct. It was very clear from these learners that they are not able to distinct quantity within a spatial spaced objects. For example, learner 2 and 3 identified the first image, as you see it on top, as the image that has many counters than the one on the bottom. While learner 1 identified the one at the bottom as one with many counters. Then the interesting thing came up when learners assessed their own responses through counting. And they realized that both figures have images, have 5 objects. Only learner 2 said ziyalingana, meaning they are equal. Both learner 1 and 2 still remained with their first choice of saying that for learner 2, the first image is more than the second image. And for learner 1, the second image has more counters than the first image. The third theme is the recognition and non-recognition of numeral symbols. Learner 1 did not recognize any numeral symbols when he was given a chart with numbers and objects to match. However, learner 2 knew all the numerals from 1 to 5 and matched them with objects representing their numbers accurately. Learner 3 was able to count the objects and say the correct cardinal number. However, he could not recognize the numeral 5 and 3, but could match numerals 1, 2, and 4 correctly. The last theme is bilingual code switching. Learner 1 counted in isiXhosa, his home language and language of instruction, but going further to bigger numbers, he switches to English number names. Learner 2 count in English numerals, but uses some isiXhosa mathematical terminology for sense making, especially when he's going to compare. He will use of zincinci, zincinci, zimbalwa, meaning they are more, they are less. And then learner 3 will count it in English numerals, then uses isiXhosa to communicate his strategy. The findings have highlighted a number of diverse numerical abilities learners demonstrated that are not fully established. One-to-one correspondence, counting on, cardinality, and equality. Secondly, lack of some numeric skills were lacking, impeding full realization of the mentioned concepts. Those skills were being unable to keep track while counting, being a reciter, meaning being able to say the number of words but not match them with objects accurately, sequential verbal counting beyond 10, that was a challenge. Once learners were above 10, they couldn't count verbally sequentially. They skip counted other number names. Bilingualism that automatically occurs between English and isiXhosa and mathematical language used. This was interesting because there was translanguaging as they were engaging verbally with numeracy. An interesting and challenging, of course, concept in the South African context, especially with our language policy that wants to develop their isiXhosa. Then the question for us in mathematics is how do we balance them learning their mother tongue while the mathematics is also developing, so that the focus is not highly on the mother tongue rather than also both developing the mother tongue and minding the fact that we want them to have good foundational mathematics. Compared to international literature, learner participants in this study enter grade R class with haphazard numerical abilities. None of the concepts are fully realized. Although they are supposed to be counters who can also produce numbers. At this stage, sub-concepts are not attained. Mathematizing learners' play and activities will enhance this huge gap. Their semi-attained numerical abilities will then be attained. This is what this paper is recommending. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So as far as I can see, Dr. Feza still not joined us, but we're very lucky that we had a video recording of her presentation. I've seen that her email address is in the abstract, so I'm sure if you have any questions, you can contact her and speak directly to her. Our next session is only at 2:50, so we'll start then in case there are anybody from the other sessions who would like to join us. So I'll be back at 2:50 to start our next session.
Hello, Miss Jessica.
Hello.
Are we on break?
So our first presenter in the session, we played her video, so the video has ended. So our next session only starts at 2:50.
Okay, it's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll see you there.
Thank you. I'm online already.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We can start our next session. I just want to check, Dr. Mawila, are you here?
Hi, Jessica. I am here with my
Okay.
co-presenter, Dr. Lulu Munongi.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Just wanted to check. Thank you. Okay, afternoon, everybody. For those who have joined us, my name is Jessica, and I work for a nonprofit organization called the Center for Early Childhood Development. We are now having a presentation on Grade R student teachers' reflections on their preparedness to address bullying, a case study of a teaching school in Johannesburg, South Africa. And our presenters are Dr. Mawila and Dr. Munongi. Yeah, I think it'll be a very interesting presentation. And it's over to you guys. So it's 20 minutes of presenting and then 10 minutes of questions and answers. Are you happy for me to give you a 5 minutes warning?
That will be lovely, Jessica. Thank you.
Okay, I will do. And you happy to share your screen?
Dr. Munongi will be projecting. I'm using my phone. Connection is not so good where I am.
Understand.
Perfect. Dr. Munongi, whenever you're ready.
Yes, I'm projecting. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Not.
From my
There we
screen,
go.
yes.
Yes, we can see.
You can see, all right. Just trying to put them on mode. Yes, there we go.
Okay, I will start with the presentation. Colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a paper in process. I'm writing it with Dr. Munongi and Dr. Mabaso. Dr. Mabaso is unfortunately unable to join due to our unforeseen. So the topic of this study is on grade R students, teachers' reflections on their preparedness to address bullying. This is a case study of a teaching school in Johannesburg, South Africa. So I will take you to the next slide, which is the introduction. So according to the UNESCO document, bullying is an international phenomenon and the prevalence of bullying is increasing. It is projected that 246 million children experience bullying in some way or the other. Bullying has become increasingly evident in South African school, and Professor Hugo stated that almost 80% of South African children are bullied on their way to and from school. What's very interesting is that Ngota and Chuba indicated that the incidences of bullying in South Africa have been on the news. And recently, what we have seen in South Africa is a case of Lufuno Mavunga. Most of you might be aware of this case. So this is a learner who committed suicide after she was bullied outside Mbilu High School in Thoyando, Limpopo. So incidences such as this are concerning to the entire population, and one wonders and ponders about the lack of safety in our schools. It is concerning that children are exposed to unsafe conditions at school, especially from a young age, and this is likely to have implications on their well-being. So in across the world, basically, and in developing countries such as South Africa, bullying and violence in schools is prevalent. It's a prevalent problem, and managing bullying in schools has become progressively challenging for teachers, more so for novice teachers entering the profession. Therefore, teachers have a critical role in promoting safety in schools by reducing bullying behaviors. To respond to the high prevalence of bullying in schools, this study investigates the preparedness of second year grade R student teachers in addressing bullying in the classroom. This study is part of the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, where student teachers were given an assignment to facilitate an anti-bullying campaign to grade R learners to educate them about bullying, its dangers, as well as how to deal with bullying. It is critical to undertake this study because it allows for evaluating student teachers' preparedness to address bullying incidences and prepare them to handle bullying once they enter the teaching profession. Very importantly, addressing bullying issues from a young age is vital, as it may reduce the occurrence of bullying and the effects of bullying at a later stage in children's lives. As we have seen with literature, studies have indicated that interventions need to be done as early as possible to prevent bullying incidences. And this study argues that teacher training programs should prepare student teachers to deal with bullying incidences in grade R in order to create safe and conducive school environment. Then that takes me to the literature review. Lulu, you may move to literature review. Thank you. So some of the literature we have reviewed indicates the following. Bullying is defined as a negative and intentional action intended to inflict physical and psychological harm to one or more people. These behaviors are repeated and it involves power imbalancement between the bully and the bullied. Different scholars have noted that the incidences of bullying have been increasing in South African schools. Several studies indicate that bullying and victimization are a common problem in junior school classes, and these problems shouldn't be taken lightly. We all know that bullying has detrimental effects on the well-being of both the victim as well as the perpetrators of bullying. Next slide, Lulu. Dr. Munungi, next slide. Combating the occurrence and the effects of bullying requires proper teacher preparedness and skills. To successfully do this, teachers need to be well knowledgeable, skilled, and prepared through initial teacher education programs to appropriately direct resources and formulate interventions to reduce incidences of bullying. Many studies on bullying have focused on the understanding of bullying, its prevalence and effects. After reviewing literature, what we have noticed is that there's very limited research on the preparedness of student teachers on how to deal with bullying. Thus, the need for this study is highlighted. Next slide, Lulu. Dr. Minongi, next slide, please. So just to take you through the problem statement, we felt that there is a need to do this study because the bullying incidences are increasing in South Africa, and it is affecting children's development across different domains. There's also lack of research in this study, and we also feel that prevention is critical in order to reduce the incidences of bullying. And if we put these interventions right from the beginning in early childhood development, we are likely going to assist these children when they grow up and become adults. Next slide, Lulu. So the theoretical framework, this study employed experiential learning theory, which was developed by David Kolb, whose work was influenced by John Dewey, Kate Lewin, and John Piaget. So experiential learning is defined as a process whereby knowledge results from the combination of grasping, and it's also created through the transformation of experience. David Kolb developed 4 stages, and it's called experiential learning cycle. So the first stage focuses on concrete experience, where a person encounters new experience or new situation, followed by stage 2, reflective observations, where the person observes and also questions what's happening based on the new experience, followed by stage 3, abstract conceptualization. Here they also think about the existing ideas that they have learned. So the person has learned from their past experience and they think more about it. Then lastly, active experimentation, where students have to apply what they learn in the classroom to their daily lives. So in terms of relating this theory to our study, next slide, please. The students began with stage 3. So what's so nice about this theory is that you can start at any stage and you continue with the cycle. So in terms of the anti-bullying campaign and this paper, students started in stage 3, which is abstract conceptualization. So students had to think basically and prepare and also question what will work best for their campaign. Then they moved to stage 4. So they went to the lecturer and the tutors to present their anti-bullying campaign, and they were provided with feedback as to how to improve the campaign. Then afterwards, they moved to the next stage, which is concrete experience, which is stage 1. And students had to go to a school where they had to facilitate an anti-bullying campaign to grade R learners. And then lastly, they finished off with the last stage, which is stage 2 in this case, where they had to come back to the university and also go back home and reflect on the anti-bullying campaign, and had to ask themselves whether they are prepared or not prepared to deal with the bullying incidences in school. Thank you, colleagues. My co-author, Dr. Minungi, will take you through the rest of the slides.
Hello, Jessica, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
I think we have lost her, so maybe I can take over if you can hear me.
If you are able to, that would be great. Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So basically, I'll just give a round of what she was saying on the stages. Our second year students who are training to teach grade R's went to a teaching school, which is attached to a university, and then they had to facilitate an anti-bullying campaign where they had to teach about bullying to the grade R's. And then after that, they were asked to write a reflective essay, which then they would reflect on what went wrong and what went right, and whether they feel they were prepared enough to teach grade R's about bullying. And from there, that's where we generated our data from. And the aim of our study was to investigate the preparedness of student teachers in addressing bullying in grade R classrooms. And from that aim, our research question was, how prepared are student teachers in addressing bullying in grade R? And our methodology that we adopted was qualitative research. And we were of that teaching school, which is in Johannesburg. And our data was collected from the 26 student, second year grade R student teachers who had written their reflective essays. And our data was analyzed through thematic data analysis. Now, coming to the results of the study. Since this is a study in progress, we have come up with two themes so far that we are going to present today. The first theme is the failure to use age-appropriate language and activities to the grade R learners. So under this first theme, we had three sub-themes, namely age-appropriate games and realistic ideas that did not match the attention span of the learners, and then poor choice of activities. So under the first sub-theme that emerged, we discovered that the student teachers assumed that the grade R learners would either know the games they had planned or find the games easy to learn and engage with during the campaign. So they later on discovered that their games that they had selected were not age appropriate. And one student actually said that the game that we originally decided on did not work effectively for the learners. Many of the learners did not know how to play the game, even when split into groups consisting of heterogeneous players. And to support that again, another student said, the thing that I would change in the planning stage is that I would add more fun games that would interest the learners. So from here, we can actually see that they failed to choose appropriate games for the learners. Under sub-theme 2, which is unrealistic ideas that failed to match the attention of the students. Some students were also commenting that to begin with, our video was too long, so the learners were bored and did not show any interest. For the sake of time, I will not read many extracts from the students, but just one or two to support our themes. Then under the third sub-theme, we found that most reflections by the student teachers indicated that they may have made poor choices of activities which could have appeared relevant during their planning phase. But then when they went on to practice, into real practice, they found that the activities were poorly chosen. One student teacher also mentioned that the activities that were chosen were not many, and some of them were not related to the focus of the campaign. And this they only realized when they were now implementing the teaching of bullying in the classroom. So these findings are in line with those from Franklin et al. 2017 systematic review, which actually examined the effectiveness of school-based psychosocial interventions. And they also discovered that teachers were failing to use appropriate age level activities for learners. And this hindered the effectiveness of interventions. Therefore, we concluded that if the students cannot choose age-appropriate activities, then they cannot properly or effectively teach bullying to the students. And furthermore, Paulus also stated that content which is used to facilitate programs is also very important. And we found that in our particular study, the student did not choose the good content which would match the attention span of the learners. The second theme that we are going to present is actually poor classroom management. And under this theme, we had two sub.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Just to say that there's about 4 minutes left, just to give you a warning.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So under this one, we found that mainly in both in sub-theme 1 and sub-theme 2, the major problem was they did not have a classroom management plan, and learners ended up not listening to their instructions. And at one point, a student wrote that the problem we experienced during execution was that the learners were being overexcited and were not listening to our instructions. So this was evident throughout their reflections, and this actually concurred with sentiments by Berry, which actually showed that teacher programs were not preparing the teachers adequately in managing classrooms. And this is actually one of our recommendations that we have made, to say that teachers need to be prepared well in order to have a classroom management strategy if they are to teach bullying or anything effectively. Right, and based on the preliminary results and the discussion that we have done, at this point, the study maintains that student teachers were unprepared to address bullying in the grade R classrooms. And some of the recommendations that we have had so far is the inclusion of bullying prevention strategies in the University Bachelor of Education program from the first year to the final year, to address bullying in grade R instead of just focusing on second year students, because in this particular case, the students only do this particular assignment when they are in second year, and they will only face it when they have qualified. And we also recommend that the curriculum needs to train student teachers on classroom management, as we have seen from the results that they could not control the classes. And also, pre-service teacher programs need to provide students with more opportunities to implement learning and put theory into practice in order to be more prepared when they finally qualify as grade R teachers. And finally, we recommend that similar studies be conducted in other universities to establish the preparedness of grade R student teachers in addressing bullying, specifically with the grade R learners in any environment. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much to Dr. Mawila and to Dr. Munongi for that wonderful presentation. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put your hands up, or you can pop them in the chat box. I see. Anzela, you're welcome to go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, it's me again. Good afternoon, colleagues. Dr. Angela van Pleetsen. First of all, I would like to compliment my colleagues. This is such a beautiful and necessary research. As you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation, we are losing our children on a high school level. Then we jump, then we try to do our anti-bully campaign and so on, and it's almost too late. But if we turn our focus and we start educating our little ones, and planting the seeds of kindness and explaining what is right, what is wrong, what is the bullying, what is the accident, we will avoid all this big drama and tragedy on a high level and when our children are getting older. So thank you so much that you realize the importance of educating our little ones. And then just one more comment. Yes, I absolutely agree that when you deal with little ones, you need to speak their language and you need to know their developmental stages and their potential, their attention span, what they can enjoy and what will be too much. And then I'll be so super happy if it will really become the part of training our future teachers, to train them how to address bully issue and to save our children. Well done, colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure if Dr. Munongi or Mawila want to respond to that before we go on to the next question.
Yes, thank you so much. Although the communication was breaking a bit, but I think I got the positive comment, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for the positive comments.
Boitumela, I see that your hand is up. You're welcome to ask your question.
That's my Prof. Boitumela.
It doesn't matter. Thank you so much. I think, Jessica, the presenters are going to kill me for asking a question because I'm their mentor and head of department. But thank you. So I'm really proud of them. I need to say in this open national platform that I'm really, really proud of them for this paper. And I really agree with the comments that were written by Dr. Makeleni. I
think we need, it's a challenge I'm bringing to them, but also bringing to everybody in this space, especially because I know one of the three presenters, her interest is in parents. We sort of work with the issue of bullying rather too late, as Angela has said. You know, we are firefighting bullying instead of preventative measures most of the time currently in schools. So I am just wondering, by the time children come to school, the children that are in this primary school and the teachers that we are training, they've already had 6-7 years of their lives where they're exposed to violence and bullying. Shouldn't we begin to be proactive and begin to do work in families and communities to address issues of violence and bullying at that early age? Parents, families, but also ECD centers. Because by the time they get to grade 1, these children, they've developed the full language of all the vulgar words they can say, you know, as normal language, of all the ways that they. So I want to challenge my 3 mentees onto saying, how would they expand this outside our teaching school context and our teacher trainers into the communities, the parents, and the, you know, the basic ECD centers that we are not really working with at the present moment. But well done to all of them for this presentation. Thank you so much.
That was a really great question.
Thank you so much, Mentor. Thank you so much, Mentor. And thank you so much. And I totally agree with you, because maybe by grade R, some of them would have already experienced bullying at home, and probably some of them would be experts in bullying already. And therefore, I want to refer to one of the presentations that has been presented by Trishana in the morning, where she was presenting about collaboration between parents and schools. And I think this is where your point fits perfectly, to say this collaboration that even the keynote speaker was talking about, I think it needs to start with families as well, so that we catch them whilst they are still young, before they even get to the schools. Thank you so much.
So Jessica, I can promise you that, because all of them, even Trishana that's mentioned, are under my department, this is a new project we are taking heads on. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's a very exciting project and much needed. Thank you. And we have another hand. Anzela, is that a new hand or an old hand? I think it's a new hand. You're welcome to go ahead.
Yes. While we mentioned parents, this is so important. You know, when children can have a fight, but 5 minutes later, they're friends again, they're playing, unless it really becomes a bullying. And then parents, when the child runs and say, oh, you know, Neo pushed me, or Tabu called me a name, then parents are having fight and they become enemies for the rest of their lives. So it's very important to educate parents what is bullying and what is just an innocent child fight or incident or accident. So it is very important to involve our parents in this educational process. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, for your, may I come in? Hopefully you can hear me.
Please go ahead, we can hear you.
Thank you, colleagues, for your comments. And to my mentor, who we know is well known for dropping bombs. So the plan of this study, we went to turn it into a huge project, and we are definitely going to include parents, considering the context that the learners that we teach in the primary school and high school, they come from diverse contextual backgrounds. And as Angela has just mentioned, most parents are not aware of what bullying is. And in most cases, if children are playing, they'll just say children are being children, until it becomes a big issue where someone is likely going to lose their lives. So yes, I definitely agree. We need to start with parents. We need to work hand in hand with parents, and also strengthen the relationship between schools and parents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel like that was perfectly on time. We are exactly at 3:20. But just to reiterate again, just to say thank you so much to Dr. Marila and Dr. Munongi for a really interesting project. And yeah, I'm sure you'll get lots of questions after this, and it's very important work. So thank you so much for taking the time to present here today. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks. So just to welcome our next presentation, I see you're already sharing. That's wonderful. Always good to get going. Our next presenter is Ms. Adendorf, and she will be presenting on higher education qualifications for early childhood development, birth to 4 educators, investigating the conditions needed for successful policy implementation. Zelda, would you like me to give you a 5-minute warning?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Jessica. Let me just get this presentation into full screen mode.
Go for it. Whenever you're ready.
The mode I'm sharing in doesn't seem to allow me to do that. Let me just stop presenting and try loading it differently.
It looks perfect on our side.
Oh, great. Okay.
It looks full screen.
Oh, wonderful. Right. Thank you. And good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Zelda Adendorf, and I'm a PhD student registered with the University of Pretoria in the Department of Early Childhood Education. Professor Keshni Baipath is my supervisor, and the focus of my study is on the conditions needed for successful implementation of a policy for higher education qualifications for early childhood educators. So, sorry, what happened there? ECD for the period from birth up to and including the year before children enter formal schooling has emerged, as you may know, as a priority in terms of several government policies and programs. And the DHET published a policy on minimum requirements for programs leading to qualifications in higher education for early childhood educators, early childhood development educators. It's a very long name. And this was gazetted in March 2017 as part of this broader policy environment. The policy takes cognizance of the fact that the provision of quality ECD services relies on the availability of a committed cadre of appropriately qualified employees in the sector. The policy has been abbreviated as MRQ-ECDE, and I am going to use that abbreviation in this presentation. It has a focus on birth to 4, and it is commonly referred to as the Mr. QECDE policy. It is a focus specifically on those responsible for the care and early learning of babies, toddlers, and young children from birth to 4. It provides a set of higher education qualifications ranging from level 5 to 10 on the National Qualifications Framework, and at present 10 universities are in the process of developing programs or awaiting accreditation for programs for either a B.Ed in Early Childhood Care and Education, or ECCE, a B.Ed at level 7, a diploma at level 6, or a higher certificate at level 5. In the long term, the policy aims to contribute to the quality of ECD programs through the professionalization of the ECD birth to 4 subsector by significantly transforming the training environment and qualifications levels. And this study is motivated by a desire to understand what conditions need to be in place and or aligned in order to support the successful implementation of the policy, particularly in the light of commonly expressed concern that well-intended policies often produce unintended failures. Sorry, I need to get to the next slide. I have now introduced you to the policy, the implementation of which is at the core of my study. And I want to say that the successful implementation of this policy is contingent on a number of factors which could either enable or constrain the implementation. The ECD system is complex, dynamic, and evolving, and consists of different layered contexts, and various factors within these contexts have the potential to impact on the policy implementation by either advancing or impeding it. So I need to explain just briefly what the actual context is. The contextual layers of the ECD system. In this diagram, the outer layer represents the global context of international agreements, charters and policies, etc. The next layer represents the national context, which encompasses the policy environment and the economic, political and social context within which the delivery of ECD services take place in South Africa. Although policies are developed and implemented in response to political, social and economic imperatives, they are also subject to the volatilities of the very contexts. Then the structural context consists of the systems governing the provision of ECD, systems of monitoring and accountability, employment, training, etc. And this includes, among others, the national government departments, the provincial and municipal departments. And the Human Resource Strategy Report of 2018 commissioned by the DBE states that human resource systems and budgets in different provincial departments, and I quote, showed significant gaps in terms of numbers as well as the required range of management and leadership skills and competencies. And the local government officials lack understanding of the concept of ECD at the most basic level. Now, this state of affairs raises concerns in the structural context because the policy implementation will need support from all levels of government in this context. Then finally, the sectoral context is in this study is made up of the contextual realities of the children, the parents, the practitioners and managers who are the users and providers in the system. The research question, the main question being, what conditions need to be in place to ensure the successful implementation of the policy, and with a very long name. And the sub-questions, what are the intentions of the policy? What are the enabling factors and the constraints affecting current policy implementation? And how can the identified gaps and challenges be addressed in implementation of the policy? The next slide gives a brief overview of the methodology. The study is conducted within the pragmatic paradigm, using an explanatory sequential mixed method research design. Both quantitative and qualitative data collection strategies in the form of a survey question and open-ended questionnaires and interviews were used. However, this presentation focuses only on the data collected from the open-ended qualitative questionnaires, which was administered to 20 participants from 5 different ECD stakeholder groups. Higher education institutions, TVET colleges, NGOs, the DBE, and 2 prominent education specialists. Right, the data analysis followed the qualitative method of identifying categories and subcategories of meaning and then developing core categories from these, checking for patterns and identifying themes from these patterns. So I need to go on. Just explain quickly the themes. The themes that emerged from the policy implementation. I have here said that I'm going to focus only on the main challenges for successful policy implementation identified from the qualitative data, which yielded theme 3. in particular the constraints impacting on policy implementation. This is a work in progress, and this is what I would like to present today. So the theoretical framework applied in the study is that of complexity theory, as it provides a well-founded framework of analytical concepts which enable a coherent understanding of what conditions need to be in place for sustainable, positive, system-wide change and development in education. Complex systems are, according to Mason, environments, organizations, or systems that are complex in the sense that very large numbers of constituent elements or agents are connected to and interacting with each other in many different ways. Once a system reaches a certain critical level of complexity, otherwise known as the critical mass, a phase transition takes place, which makes possible the emergence of new properties and behaviors, and a new direction of self-sustaining momentum. Complexity theory tells us that levers and key drivers of change need to be understood as part of a dynamic and complex web of factors whose mutual influence will compound each other. Now, this is key to understanding what is happening in the sector and what needs to be done in order to enable the successful implementation of the policy. The lens that I'm showing here is a lens through which to view the ECD system. I'm using complexity theory as a lens, and specifically to look at the interconnected and interacting parts within the system. Complexity theory draws on a network of theories, and such as chaos theory, systems theory, network theory, and concepts such as uncertainty, unpredictability, complexity, contingency, nonlinear pathways, self-organization, and emergence are some of the commonalities that are integral to complexity theory. And in this study, these concepts are applied in relation to the explanatory power that they might have for understanding the conditions that need to be in place to initiate and sustain systemic change in the ECD system, enabling the successful implementation of this policy. I have extracted 4 common categories that emerge from the data in relation to the theme of constraints for implementation. The first common category relates to the employment, lack of employment and conditions of employment. And as you can see from the quotations, participants expressed their concern regarding this quite strongly. These were across all the different participant groups. Then the issue of standard remuneration was another, sorry, there we go, the standard remuneration. The second aspect that was common was that of the lack of appropriate remuneration, DBE's ability to finance the appointment of educators, and the fact that there are no plans for employment and remuneration were key concerns. Recognition and status also emerged as a factor that has the potential to impact negatively on the uptake of qualifications. And then access to higher education qualifications. Concerns around the access came from all quarters, but particularly from the NGOs. And this concern relates mainly to universities possibly not implementing recognition of prior learning effectively, although the policy allows for the recognition of occupational qualifications through RPL. So what are the lessons that we can learn from complexity theory about addressing these gaps or challenges? The data shows that the successful implementation of the policy is dependent on changes and alignment of processes in the national, the structural, and the sectoral context. And a key insight from complexity theory is that in order to address a problem within a complex system, it needs to be addressed on as many fronts as possible. The nature of complex systems means that in order for sustainable change to take place, intervening in one area and expecting other sectors to align and change alongside is not effective. You need to have what is known as a compounding effect, which can set in motion a process to achieve what complexity theorists call inertial momentum. Another lesson is related to unpredictability and nonlinearity. The implementation of an education policy into a system as complex as the ECD system cannot be expected to unfold in a predictable and linear manner. And therefore, as Scott says, a mechanical application of generic rules that ignore the particularities is an invitation to policy failure, social disillusionment, or more likely both. So some of these particularities were expressed by participants as I have captured them on this slide. And you can see that it ranges from the impact of COVID to the fact that at present a level 4 qualification is being set as the minimum requirement for ECD practitioners. And these factors could not be predicted when the policy was developed. So it means that policy implementation can be expected to be unpredictable and non-linear. And then a third element within a system is that a third element that complexity theory brings to this problem is that of self-organization and emergence. When elements within a system work together, we get the emergence of a new level of organization through a process of self-organization. And another key tenet of complexity theory in relation to self-organization is that within a complex system, elements have a degree of autonomy. So often through their capacity to adapt to their local environment on their own initiative, independent of centralized control. And there are examples of self-organization and emergent behavior happening within the system, because institutions are forming partnerships with colleges and NGOs to address challenges with work-integrated learning, or developing bridging courses in partnership with NGOs and or colleges to address the common concerns around access, for example.
Zelda?
Yes.
Just to say 5 more minutes left.
Thank you. I am about to do my last 2 slides. So the research has shown that the policy has set in motion some processes that indicate self-organization and emergence in response to challenges and gaps in the conditions required for implementation. So these are collaboration between institutions, as I've mentioned, and then also conversations and debates about implementation challenges and the need for reimagining the educator qualification environment. And the not only collaboration between institutions of higher learning, but also between them and the current providers of ECD educator training programs. So it has sparked important conversations, but it has also highlighted the fact that the successful implementation of a policy such as the MRQ-ECDE in a system as complex as the ECD system requires mobilization for implementation at multiple levels within the system. Then I'm going to leave you with a final thought, if I can find the slide. There we go. So although the policy can be a lever for change, it will require meaningful intervention on every possible level, and a readiness to recognize and acknowledge and take seriously emergent initiatives and other developments that were not foreseen by the policymakers. Crucially, these may include factors that, though they may initially seem insignificant, have the capacity to derail the policy or to contribute significantly to its successful implementation. I thank you. Any suggestions? Welcome.
Thank you, Zelda, for that presentation. Definitely a lot to think about. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions for Zelda, you're welcome to put your hands up or to please pop it in the chat. Okay. All quite quiet. Just want to give people, sometimes everybody needs a few moments to think. Sheila, you're welcome to go ahead and ask your question. Sheila, you are muted. Sheila, we can't hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear us, but it seems like you are still muted, so we can't hear your question. Seems like we can't hear Sheila. Sheila, you're welcome to also pop your question into the chat if we're not able to hear you. Okay. Zelda, I was just, while we're waiting to see if there are any more questions, if there are any other kind of thoughts or comments that you would like to give to the delegates.
Thank you. As I said, this is a work in progress, and I've only been able to focus on one aspect of the data collection, which was, or one of the data collection collections that I used, and that was the 5 groups. It is a mixed method research, so I've also used quantitative questionnaires, which I've had 180 participants' responses from, and I used that to decide who I would interview from the practitioners. These were practitioners. So it's a matter of then selecting from the quantitative surveys the practitioners to interview. And I can mention that many of the responses from the practitioners echo the concerns that I've got from this group of participants. So yes, I'm looking forward to meshing it all together.
Thank you. I see that, Sheila, you're back again. I'm not sure if you want to try again to ask your question.
Yes, thank you. I was unable to mute and I was unable to open the chat. I'm sorry, I wasn't meaning to be rude.
No, we can hear you perfectly now.
Thank you. Hi, Zelda.
Hi, Sheila.
I was wondering whether in the complexity theory, it allows for different levels of the system and requires that those levels somehow communicate or are coordinated. Does the theory suggest how those may be coordinated? I was interested that you're also drawing on, what did you call it, chaos theory? And I wonder how one takes what comes out of the chaos and somehow makes it
yes.
meaningful.
Well, complexity theory says that the change often happens at that very edge of chaos. Chaos theory is one of the theories that has contributed to the development of complexity theory, and specifically all these principles that are part of complexity theory. So it doesn't actually say how you go about it, but what it is suggesting is that we do need intervention at all the different levels of the sector. And so my thinking from this and recommendations that will come out of it, apart from what I've received from the participants, is that possibly DHET needs to go back to the drawing board and do a costed implementation plan involving all the different sectors. I'm speaking now as a researcher.
Thank you. Perhaps I can just follow up. So that is helpful. Part of my reason for my question is because I think in spite of perceptions that the ECD sector is still very chaotic and siloed and all that non-lovely stuff, there are also lots of there's lots of willingness and there's lots of push for a range of collaborative efforts. And part of my question is, do we need to be thinking about how that collaboration can best happen in order that something useful comes of it. So that the collaboration itself isn't contributing to the chaos or the lack of implementation.
Yes, thank you. That's something worthwhile, I think worth thinking about and considering. We have all these different fora and meeting committees where we do meet and can share ideas, and possibly this needs to be brought more prominently to some of those committee meetings. But I'd like to engage with you further and hear some more ideas, Sheila, if you have. Thanks.
Thank you, Zelda.
Thank you so much. Oh, I see that there is a hand. Go ahead, Angela.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Unfortunately, I had some connection problems, so I couldn't see the presentation from the beginning, but I just would like to comment on the last statement. Unfortunately, our ECD, it is chaotic, and we don't know, not we, but our practitioners and people out there, they really don't know what's going on and what should they do, how do they provide the quality education, which policies that they should follow. Early today, it was a presentation about COVID and how COVID affected. And I really appreciate what the presenters were saying, that, you know, now you need to do this, then you need to do this, then you need to do this. And the poor practitioners and the so-called our managers of the schools, they simply don't even have finances to afford all what needs to be in place for them to be able to comply with the COVID regulations. And that is why really they need our guidance, and it needs to be not theoretical, it needs to be practical, it needs to be doable, and it needs to be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Oh, hand is lowered. Okay. All right. If there aren't any other questions, Zelda, I'm going to say thank you so much for a really interesting presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. Thank you so much. Yeah, so there's some chats happening in the chat box, so everybody's welcome to also have a look at that. But just to bring the session to a close and to say thank you so much to everybody for being part of the conference today, and hopefully it was fruitful and very productive. And just to remind everybody that tomorrow it'll start again at 9 o'clock with a keynote address from Professor Eric Atmore, and the keynote address is on looking back, looking forward, early childhood development in South Africa. So thanks everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Zelda. Keep well.
Take care. Bye.